In the city of Korea, this is a story inside a female prison. The prisoners are all women serving their time in jail. They play with each other in an indecent manner for fun, and they really have no shame at all. Among these vulgar women, our hero is a junior correctional officer and his name is Jian Woo Jin. He is trying to become a better coach, but the women inmates tease him even more, exposing their bodies to him. Just then he is called by the sergeant of this prison. Seeing the sergeant, the inmates also stop their dirty play and run away. The sergeant is actually a woman as well, and her name is Sergeant Namchi. However, she is a tough and ruthless officer. The other officers even call her the Devil Sergeant. Behind her back, she is scolding Woo Jin for being so timid and soft in front of the inmates. This actually happens quite often. He apologizes to her and promises to take extra precaution next time. The sergeant agrees to give him another chance and pokes at his chest, telling him to do a better job and keep his shoulders straight. She says to straighten his shoulders, but why is she poking his chest? However, the warden wants to see Woo Jin, so he needs to report to the warden's office. He salutes the sergeant with sincerity and leaves. As he leaves, the female sergeant wonders that even though his face and actions are so naive, his body definitely smells like a real man. She is impressed with his firm chest. On his way to the warden's office, he hears some strange noise coming from inside. Inside his private office, the prisoner was just getting dressed when he got inside with no shame. She even winks at him while putting on her shirt. The warden orders Woo Jin to take the inmate back to her cell. Also, he tells Woo Jin to manage some time on this weekend, as he wants Woo Jin to be driver for him when he will go on a date with that inmate. The inmate is very pleased in the background, as Woo Jin accepts these orders from the warden. 2 days later, there is a batch of new prisoners that are coming to this prison. As they watch from the window, his co-worker, who is a horny guard, is talking about how the warden always takes any girl he likes. A man really needs to have power and authority. Then he can do anything. However, Woo Jin thinks it would be wise to stay out of trouble as much as possible. The new inmates have finally arrived, as the horny guard is really curious to see what kind of pretty ladies are coming to prison for committing crimes. Woo Jin's eyes get locked on a particular prisoner. As she walks down the bus, he is surprised to see how pretty she was. He even thinks that she is pretty enough to be a celebrity. They both wonder what crimes could a pretty girl like that would have done. As they chat about the new inmates from the window, Sergeant Namchi has actually come behind them. She and her assistant are quietly watching the both of them talk about the new inmates without them noticing. As she looks down, she also notices that the new girl has a cute face. Woo Jin finally says out loud that she really is pretty. Now this makes the sergeant weirdly angry, and she screams at them. The both of them are shocked to see the sergeant behind them all of a sudden, and they run away to their posts. The sergeant is especially annoyed to see Woo Jin being so much impressed with this new inmate's cute face. Soon after, the new inmates are lined up for the introduction to this correctional facility. They will conduct a body search to make sure that they do not carry any objects with them. The sergeant orders them to strip down, including their underwear. As the new inmates were hesitant about a sudden body search, the sergeant tells them to stop making noises and hurry up. All of them strip down fully and stand in front of the officers. However, the sergeant's eyes are especially locked on the girl that Woo Jin was looking at earlier. This is inmate number 5342. Lee Byun, a journalist sentenced to prison for 3 years for the crime of defamation. However, it doesn't matter to the sergeant if she is pretty or not, as she is just a criminal. In the end, after the assistant finished the routine search, Sergeant Namchi calls inmate 5342 in suspicion of hiding something. She wants her to turn around and face the wall. Although shocked, she obeys and turns around. Now the sergeant wants her to bend over and spread her buttocks and kitty with her hands. Everybody is shocked to hear such an absurd instructions. All of a sudden, Lee Byun hopes that she misheard it, but the sergeant is serious. She told Byun to comply, otherwise she will have to call the prison search team inside. The fellow inmates also advise her to just follow the orders. But Lee Byun is different. She points out that she has already been searched by the other correctional officer, and this intensive body search is a violation of human rights. She strongly demands an official search to be searched alone with the proper devices. Now, Sergeant Namchi is getting really annoyed by this attitude of an inmate. She is sure to teach this arrogant woman a lesson. She orders to send the CRPD team inside. Lee Boon is scared as the male officers were about to come inside. Following the sergeant's order, the team comes inside. These were all men. Seeing the male officers inside, the women inmates were so shocked. Officer Wu Jin is also wondering why they weren't being inspected individually. Lee Boon immediately agrees to obey the sergeant and begs her to send the men outside. Seeing Boon submit, Namchi sends the CRPF team outside. As the men are waiting outside for further order, Wu Jin cannot get the sight of Boon's amazing body out of his mind. He is a little worried what that devil sergeant might do to her. The sergeant then puts on the rubber gloves and pushes her fingers inside for a deep. Boon cannot handle this insult, and she slapped the sergeant. Everybody is shocked that an inmate laid her hands on a senior officer. Namchi grabs her by the hair and is going to make her pay. Seeing this, the other inmates also feel like this is going too far. So they also decide to attack the sergeant. And all of the new inmates start to beat the sergeant. The assistant immediately called the CRPT inside. The control team quickly took control of the inmates, and Sergeant Namchi angrily ordered Officer Wu Jin to cuff Bai Yun and put her in solitary punishment. She is extremely angry and serious about this. However, when he looks at Boon, she is in a miserable state already. Still, he needs to follow the orders. He kindly tries to take her quietly, otherwise he must cuff her. However, she still resists and even threatens them to report them to the human rights. As she struggles to get away, she bangs her head on the wall by herself due to the hit. She immediately starts bleeding and falls to the ground. There has been a casualty, so they must take her to the infirmary. After a while, she wakes up on a bed inside the infirmary, but she is still handcuffed. Wu Jin comes to see if she is awake and informs her that she was given first aid and that she is going to be okay. He kindly tells her that she could sleep on this bed for tonight. He wanted to apologize for the physical altercation earlier, but before he could finish, she strongly refused to talk to him about anything. She tells him that the sergeant and him were all the same to her. She hated them. Wu Jin is left speechless due to her resentment. However, there is nothing more he can do for now. It was a terrible first impression, and on top of that, Sergeant Namchi is going to be angry with him again. Nothing is going in his favor at all. As Wu Jin is leaving from the infirmary, he sees that a guard is escorting some inmates inside the bathroom. On top of that, it is already past lockup time and prisoners are not allowed in the bathroom. However, this was not an ordinary prisoner. She was having a personalized bath, luxurious wine and service from other inmates. Her name is Junior. She was like a boss of criminals inside this prison, who had the warden in her influence. She takes massages from her cellmates, and they serve her like slaves. She was the one who sent the young girls to service the warden, and she is rich. So even the warden was on her payroll. They were discussing the events that happened with the new inmates this morning. Hearing the story of Boon Jun, he becomes very interested in her. Now it is Saturday. Lee Boon has been kept in the punishment room area till now. She has been there for 4 days in extreme heat, as punishment for assaulting the sergeant. On the other side, Sergeant Namchi was called to the warden's office. The warden wanted to discuss the events that happened with the new inmates. However, when she entered the office, she was shocked to see that the inmate Junior was sitting with the warden so casually, even drinking tea with him. So Namchi wants to know why. However, the warden strikes back, saying that they are there to discuss the matter about her, and not the inmate sitting there. Clearly, the warden is on Junior's side still. Junie gets up and acts as if she doesn't know anything. Then she leaves the room, pretending like she does not want to annoy the sergeant. But Sergeant Namchi clearly understands Junior's true nature. Back to the issue. The warden is not happy with her behavior with the new inmates. If the news of that inspection of private parts leaks out, they will get in huge trouble. Namchi argues that the inmate even assaulted her, which was a heavy offense. Still, the warden orders her to release Boon from punishment and send her to Junior's cell room. Namchi is not happy with this, But there was a reason for this. They needed to keep Boone in observation. The warden tells her how Boone got there. Boone was a famous news reporter who poked her nose as some very important people's business and got them in trouble. After she continuously messed with the upper-class people, she ended up in prison. The warden requests her to support him on this matter. So Namchi agrees to this, but she will take serious action if she tries